Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In this video, we will be looking at the character of Ellie Williams from the popular video game franchise, The Last of Us. We'll be exploring whether Ellie needs the interactive storytelling that video games provide her to fully understand her character development, and why the HBO adaptation struggles to capture that emotional depth. By exploring the effects of shifting from a game to a television screen, we'll understand what made Ellie's character resonate so powerfully with the players, and why that connection didn't fully carry on to the television medium. I also want to explore the idea of the heartbroken gamer dilemma. And as always, thank you for stumbling upon this channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, and welcome. And if you are a subscriber, then hi! Honestly, by the day, you're just getting better looking. It's actually kind of crazy. When video games are adapted into television, a fundamental shift occurs. Interactive storytelling, where players actively shape their experience, become passive. This transformation impacts audience reception, alters character development, and changes how viewers emotionally connect with the story. This video examines the Last of Us franchise, mainly The Last of Us Part 2, and its television adaptation, focusing on Ellie. In the game, players form a deep emotional attachment to her, controlling her actions, experiencing her perspective firsthand, and shaping their emotional bond through interactivity. However, in the HBO adaptation, Ellie's character feels distant, leading to audience detachment. This raises a key question I want to understand. Does Ellie's complexity rely on video game interactivity to be fully understood? Or can she exist meaningfully in the television narrative? By analysing audience responses, adaptation theory, and the role of interactivity, this video will explore how changes in medium affect emotional engagement, and why so many viewers feel that the HBO's Ellie lacks the depth and impact of her video game counterpart. The Last of Us Part 2 is the sequel to The Last of Us, the video game, originally released on the PlayStation. As the franchise expanded to other platforms, including Xbox and PC, its audience grew beyond PlayStation users, increasing its cultural impact. This mainstream success eventually led Naughty Dog and their producers to take the franchise further into television. HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us was met with excitement, as fans anticipated seeing beloved characters brought to life beyond the digital world of gaming. While the first season faced some criticism, particularly regarding casting choices, narrative deviations, and concerns over the use of source material, it was largely regarded as a successful translation of the first game. However, the television adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2 proved far more divisive. The second season faced intense scrutiny, particularly surrounding the narrative direction and the casting decisions. At the centre of this controversy was the portrayal of Ellie Williams, the franchise's protagonist. Fans who had connected deeply with Ellie in the game struggled to recognise her in this adaptation, resulting in a disconnect between the audiences of the two mediums. Now, let's look at why this disconnect occurred, focusing on the impact of transitioning from interactive experience to a passive television narrative. To explore this, we must analyse player agency and narrative perception, two key elements that shape audience engagement. Understanding these factors will clarify why Ellie's character feels so distant in the HBO adaptation, despite the emotional intensity she maintains in the video game. Now, let's have a little introduction of the Last of Us franchise. The Last of Us owes much of its success to its narrative depth, immersive atmosphere, and character-driven storytelling, using carefully constructed scenes and dialogue to deepen the player's attachment. Both The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 operate within the meta-modern gaming framework, blending emotional sincerity with self-awareness. Through interactive player agency, players experience Ellie's story as a participant, shaping her growth, actions, and moral dilemmas. This interaction reinforces character perception, making Ellie feel like a realised individual rather than a scripted figure. However, HBO's adaptation removes the player's influence, shifting to traditional cinematic storytelling. Ellie's growth is now predetermined, leading audiences to engage with her passively rather than actively. This shift disrupts the meta-modern balance between immersion and introspection, causing a weakness in audience attachment to Ellie's character, making her transformation feel less personal. Let's take a look at Ellie's role in the Last of Us franchise, the game mechanics, player choice, and emotional investment. In The Last of Us, players initially experience the world through Joel's perspective, with Ellie serving as a companion character rather than a playable protagonist. However, as the story progresses, players take control of Ellie, fundamentally shifting their relationship with her. This transition deepens the emotional attachment as players inhabit Ellie's perspective directly, deepening her struggles firsthand rather than viewing her through Joel's lens. One of the most pivotal scenes is when Ellie is getting medicine for Joel. At this point, players are no longer speculating about her emotions. They actively experience them, controlling her actions as she fights for his survival. This reinforces character attachment theory, which suggests that emotional bonds in video games strengthen when players assume direct control over a character rather than engaging with them solely as an NPC. The transition from Joel to Ellie's character validates their relationship, allowing players to personally engage with Ellie and care for Joel rather than simply observing it. And in The Last of Us Part 2, this shift becomes even more crucial in Ellie's development. Now the central playable character, Ellie's combat style, stealth mechanics, and skill progression reflect her growing obsession with revenge. Players upgrade Ellie's abilities, reinforcing her transformation into someone faster and more efficient. Her arsenal of lightweight firearms, silencers, and trap explosive mirrors her stealth-based approach, highlighting how she outmaneuvers enemies rather than overpowers them. Ellie's movement and environmental interaction further emphasizes her evolution. She is agile, wiry, and physically imposing, not because of her strength, but because of her ability to strategically navigate tense encounters. The game's mechanics force players to embody her mindset, whether through stealth, close-quarter combat, or tense exploration sequences. Over time, Ellie isn't just someone players control, she is someone they have shaped, making her descendant into vengeance feel deeply personal. Ultimately, Ellie's characterization in The Last of Us Part 2 is tied to game mechanics, player choice, and emotional investment. Her arc is shaped by this interactivity, making her unraveling feel more earned rather than imposed. Now we've had a good look at how Ellie's character development in the game works with its mechanics, we'll take a look at the challenges of adapting that. Adaptation theory explores how narratives evolve when transitioning across different mediums, often requiring adjustment in structure, audience engagement, and storytelling techniques. Video games rely on interactivity, while television is a passive medium, fundamentally altering how audience experience character arcs. In Last of Us Part 2, player agency is central to Ellie's emotional depth. Players directly shape her journey, reinforcing their personal attachment to her through gameplay. This interactive engagement validates her transformation, making her descent into vengeance feel earned. However, when adapted into television, this agency is removed, turning player-driven evolution into a scripted narrative. This shift often leads to audience detachment, as viewers are no longer participating in shaping the character, but simply observing their actions. The Last of Us Part 2 highlights the difficulties of adapting a game where emotional investment is tied to immersion, a quality traditional television struggles to replicate. Now let's take a look at The Last of Us Part 2 and the narrative shifts when it moves across mediums. The Last of Us Part 2 serves as a compelling case study for analysing how narrative shifts between mediums impact audience engagement. As mentioned prior, as an interactive experience, the game fosters emotional investment through player agency. This interactivity creates a deeper attachment to the characters, as we directly struggle with their moral choices. Now let's examine another way in which Ellie's character is developed within the video game. Character identification. Players who experience The Last of Us form a deep emotional attachment to Ellie, a bond that intensifies in Part 2. Her relationship with Joel provides a sense of security, but in the sequel, this fractures. Joel's deception wounds Ellie deeply, and the players feel that weight of betrayal firsthand. Interactive storytelling strengthens this bond. In The Last of Us, players control Joel, making choices that ultimately impact Ellie, fostering a sense of guilt and responsibility. Part 2 shifts this perspective. Players now control Ellie directly, experiencing her pain, anger, and unraveling in real time. This dual experience deepens players' engagement, making Ellie feel like more of a character. She becomes someone they have shaped and reckoned with emotionally. Beyond the main plot, environmental storytelling further enriches Ellie's character. Her bedroom, workplace, schoolyard, and journal offer glimpses into her private life, reinforcing her presence beyond direct gameplay. The idea of spatial storytelling supports this. Players uncover layers of Ellie's personal life through interaction, fostering a more immersive emotional connection. Passive media like television loses this interactive emotional validation. Audiences watch Ellie's journey unfold, but do not experience her struggles firsthand, resulting in more of a detached connection to her character. It's argued that player-driven engagement creates deeper emotional investment, highlighting why Ellie's transformation in Part 2 is so powerful in the game, but difficult to translate into passive storytelling. Something that's important to mention is when players experience game flow, where immersion in Ellie's progression reinforces their emotional engagement. It's theorized that when people are leveling up their character, it increases immersion and character identification, suggesting that when players engage with Ellie's evolving skills, they become more deeply invested in her journey. Ultimately, the mechanics force the players to embody Ellie's mindset. Her ability to survive depends on how well the player utilizes her environment. Ellie isn't just someone that the players control. They are active in her development. Now we've had a look at Ellie's development in the game, let's directly compare it to Season 2 of the HBO series. Ellie's character arc in The Last of Us is deeply shaped by loss, betrayal, and trauma. Every major relationship she has formed has been taken from her in brutal ways. This accumulation of grief directly fuels her pursuit of revenge against Abby. But when comparing the game to the HBO adaptation, significant differences emerge in how Ellie processes these emotional challenges. One of the most revealing moments is her reaction to Dina's pregnancy. In the game, Ellie's response to Dina's pregnancy is raw, volatile, and deeply revealing of her mental state.
I think I'm pregnant. What? Don't worry, it's not yours. What are we supposed to do now? Nothing. I just need to rest for a second. Are you fucking kidding? How long have you known? It was late a few weeks ago. A few weeks? We could have still turned back. I didn't know. I wasn't sure, okay? I didn't want to be a burden. Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?
Ellie's reaction is not just frustration, it's an emotional fracture rooted in years of unresolved trauma. She has lost her childhood friend Riley, who was bitten and infected. She witnessed the loss of Henry after his brother became infected. Her surrogate mother figure, Marlene, was executed by Joel. And now, after losing Joel himself, the person who became her father, she is consumed entirely by vengeance. At this moment, Ellie is incapable of processing anything beyond survival and revenge. Initially, after hearing the news, she cares for Dina, even acknowledging they could have turned back to Jackson. But once she fully grasps the burden of Dina's pregnancy, her mentality shifts. Empathy disappears. Resentment takes over. Ellie no longer sees Dina as a partner, but as another obstacle in her way of revenge. For players, this moment is uncomfortable, because it forces a direct confrontation with Ellie's mental state. Her rage is justified, yet her cruelty is undeniable. The players must wrestle with their perception of her morality, questioning whether she is still the person they connected with, or if grief has permanently fractured her. By contrast, the HBO adaptation portrays this scene in a completely different light.
I'm pregnant.
Instead of emotionally volatile, Ellie reacts with surprising indifference. Rather than struggling with the weight of this revelation, the scene abruptly transitions into intimacy, and the next morning the conversation resumes.
So, we're having a baby. I mean, we and also, I guess, Jesse. It was Jesse, right?
This adaptation entirely removes Ellie's internal conflict. Instead of grappling with her mission and the growing emotional burden of Dina's pregnancy, Ellie is presented as lighthearted and unconcerned. The humour dynamic is also reversed. In the game, Dina cracks the joke because she knows Ellie's anger is boiling beneath the surface. In the show, Ellie makes the joke, deflecting instead of confronting the situation. This shift alters the power balance of the conversation. It portrays Ellie as someone who is detached from the weight of the moment, whereas in the game, she is drowning in it. And possibly one of the most jarring moments.
I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
Instead of reinforcing Ellie's emotional instability, this line implies she is embracing the idea of a future, something her game counterpart never allows herself to consider. The game's Ellie doesn't think of stability. She doesn't believe in the peace. She lives moment to moment, driven only by anger. The show's Ellie, however, appears far more settled, stripped away of a vital layer of character development. By softening Ellie's emotional turmoil, the adaptation fundamentally changes Ellie's character arc. The game's Ellie is erratic, morally conflicted, and tormented by loss. The HBO series, however, removes much of this instability, presenting her as someone far more emotionally balanced than she should be at this stage in the story. This divergence diminishes the core theme of The Last of Us Part 2, how revenge corrodes the soul. In the game, players feel Ellie's turmoil, questioning her choices as much as she does. The HBO adaptation, however, loses this nuance, making her emotional unravelling far less impactful. Audiences who have only experienced The Last of Us through HBO's lens may not struggle so much with Ellie's development. To them, her arc may appear like a natural shift, an impulsive, emotionally reactive young adult, hardened by the world around her. However, video game players experience a much deeper loss, one tied not just to Ellie's characterization, but their own relationship with her. This can create what can be described as the heartbroken gamer dilemma. Players aren't simply watching Ellie change, they have shaped her journey, fought alongside her, and judged her morality firsthand. In The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie's journey into instability is not something players merely observe, they actively participate in it. This is why the HBO adaptation feels so jarring to so many players. The Ellie they have grown with, protected, and emotionally invested in is gone, replaced by someone unfamiliar. While Season 1 captures the essence of the younger Ellie, her sharp wit, her guarded but caring nature, Season 2 does more than reinterpret her. It actively opposes her character development, shaping her presence in a way that makes her feel distant from the person the player is connected with. This ties into the distinction between parasocial relationships and character attachment. In television, audiences develop parasocial bonds where they feel connected to characters despite having no influence on them. Video games, however, foster character attachment, a deeper connection formed not just by characters' impact on the player, but by the player's impact on the character. Ellie isn't just someone players care about, they have directly shaped her identity, making the HBO adaptation feel less like a continuation and more like a betrayal of their experience. Ultimately, the heartbroken player dilemma comes down to perspective. Where HBO audiences see a rebellious young woman, video game players see the complete destruction of someone they loved, protected, and grappled with. The adaptation does not simply reinterpret Ellie, it reshapes her identity, severing the bond that players had formed through the years of interactive storytelling. This creates what can be described as the heartbroken player dilemma. And finally, let's look at the limits of adaptations for Ellie's character. The limits of the adaptation for Ellie's character are significant. The video game medium allowed Ellie's character to be understood on more levels, through player agency, interactivity, and immersion. Without this foundation, her character suffers. While some adaptations successfully translate complex protagonists to the screen, such as The Witcher, which was widely accepted by both gaming and television audiences, others struggle. Some characters are transferable, while others lose their essence when stripped of the interactivity. Fallout thrived as a television adaptation, praised for its charming, fun storytelling. Yet, The Last of Us faced a different fate. The transition to television fractured the fan base, leaving many disconnected from Ellie's portrayal. Ellie's character in Part 2 seems too layered to fit within the constraints of one season alone. The numbers speak for themselves. While the game offers 20 to 40 hours of immersive storytelling, the series condenses Ellie's journey into approximately 7 hours of screen time. And that's not even accounting for the moments where she's not even on the screen, which further reduces her presence. And the result of this is a character that was once shaped by player choice and emotional investment is now passively observed. Her depth is diminished. The players' hearts are broken, and for good reason. Ellie isn't there. As Weber, Bowman, and Lewis explore, in They May Be Pixels, but They're My Pixels, players form deep emotional bonds with video game characters, not merely as spectators, but as active participants in their growth, struggles, and identities. Character attachment stems from identification, responsibility, and control, elements that define players' experience with Ellie, but vanish when adapted to the TV screen. HBO's adaptation did not just reframe Ellie's character, it erased the version that the players had shaped, leaving them a portrayal of Ellie that felt unfamiliar, distant, and ultimately heartbreaking. Thanks for watching today's video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the comparison made between Ellie's video game character and the one in the HBO adaptation. Be sure to share your comments in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts and your take on Ellie's character development. I'll see you in the next video.